financially successful, but you can be physically unsuccessful. You can be mentally unsuccessful. So we often now have this thing where the hierarchy is money. So we say, well, if you have the money, you're successful, but we're not looking at it in a holistic sense. This person doesn't have family, right? They don't have honor, right? They are not mentally stable. So psychological wholeness is what's missing when you don't have a vehicle that's a framework to even measure whether you're psychologically whole. The way you operate in society, the way you're able to produce thoughts, the way you're able to get along and operate within your community, the value that you bring to your community. We have lost knowledge of self, so that basis of awareness to judge our success and our contribution to our community is lost as a metric. So when we go back to religion, we look at the framework of why religion works. And if you want to replace something, you have to replace it with something as powerful or better. You can't just get rid of it, because then that causes a phase of chaos, because that's disruption without order.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you say, my brother. Great answer, my brother. Great answer. You know, you mentioned the and I'm really I can't wait to get into this because I seen your name was mentioned in this I think it's called the Onyx Report. Is that what was it called? The Onyx Report?
The Onyx Report. The Onyx Impact Report or something like that.
Well, let's get into that now. Let's get into that now. And I want to bring this up because going on with this report and what they're saying about you, my brother. I'm seeing you all over on NBC, all over the place, brother. What's going on, Keys?
Well, you know, I was very disappointed when I look at who wrote the report. And so, you know, when I look at it, I'm gonna look at the author of it, because the way media has such a powerful ability, this is what we want for our America. Then they're gonna say, wait a minute. We have to discredit your voice. We have to dismantle your presence. We have to do something to make sure that you don't have this charismatic presence to where you can influence on what they said, black voters. So they literally telling you that, wait a minute, black men in America that have large platforms that other black people gravitate towards because they have the same value system and beliefs, you're not supposed to utilize your voice in your own culture to disseminate your ideas and influence. So instead of them coming to you saying that, wait a minute, let me cater to your ideas and create a world that will make it more comfortable for you to live in, so we can create opportunities that you can take advantage of based on your values. No, they saying that you're the enemy unless you agree with us, which is some plantation master shit. So I was disappointed in the sister because she reached out and said that I didn't mean it like that. I was telling them to platforms like yours, I was telling them that they need to respect your platform and pay attention because you have the ability to sway it as a gateway platform. But I'm like, obviously, none of those things were actually written in there. It was plain information given. It was connected what they basically considered to be bad actors in media, right? And then it was ways how to discredit those people, a whole entire plan. That's right. And so when I seen the article, I'm like, wait a minute, but this article represents a key point that you pointed out as a way to dismantle those voices, which is being able to discredit them, because they said they did the research that if you put out discrediting and disparaging articles about these black influencers, then it will sway voters, right, to disconnect with them, and it will decrease their influence. So this is what we consider to be a hit piece. This is a full-on attack, and they act like
they're accusing you of. So I just had to say that, but I want to ask you this, Keys. I got to ask you this. With the atmosphere, with the climate that's going on right now in this country, I mean, it's a hot climate. The temperature just ain't hot outside. The temperature is hot inside with everybody in this country right now and everybody across the world, because there's a paradigm shift happening right now. And you know, because you had a group called the Paradigm Shifters. Shout out to Red and Blue. Keys, I want to ask you, with this report, do you think, Keys, that black immigrants have because this sister's Nigerian, with the climate that's going on right now, Keys, do black immigrants have a completely different agenda concerning this country than black Americans? Do you think that, 19 Keys?
I think it's very much possible. I wouldn't say we can't, there's no such thing as a blanket statement to that because it depends
Yes,
on
sir.
the experiences of the immigrants, how long they've been in this country, what regions that they come from, and the consciousness that they have. But I can say for sure that, there's definitely going to be a disconnection because there's going to be ethnic differences. And the reason that they may make decisions based on their beliefs, right, and their ideas is going to be different. As a Black American who has a descendancy, right, from the wars in America and slavery in America, and I can count my family being here at least 500 plus years, that
Right.
gives me a different connection with the American experience and
Yes,
what
sir.
I call our America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like when we say our America, we talking about what we want our vision of America to be, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
while Black males in America is going to have a different perspective based
Mm-hmm.
on, our inherent perspective from our fathers and their grandfathers on their experiences in America. As an
Mm-hmm.
immigrant, you're not connected to, let's say, World War II. You know what I'm
Yes, sir.
saying? You're not connected to the crack epidemic. You're not connected to mass incarceration.
Ooh,
You're not
here
connected
you
to the
go.
breaking up of families. You're not connected to the images and tropes that they perpetuate as stereotypes. You're not connected to the effeminization agenda of the Black man, right? You're not connected to the civil rights movement. You're not connected to the assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You're not
Ooh,
connected to none of these things, right? So you don't feel that. So that's not embedded in your consciousness. So when you go back to W.E.B. Du Bois and he was talking about the double consciousness in America, how they see us and how we see ourselves, that is a different consciousness that an immigrant is going to have of how they believe that they're seen and how they see themselves, and also the loyalty that they have to their ethnic group. So the reason and the intention of why they do it, why do you want wealth? Where's your wealth going? It's not the same as we may make a blanket statement to the diaspora, right? So
yeah,
we say
yeah.
Black, and it's not a good classification of the ethnic groups in America because it's a blanket statement that everybody is the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not saying that, okay, who is our tribes? And that's why I say, well, it's the ethnic groups that you focus on, who have the same beliefs and values. And ethnic also talks about who came from the same geographical regions as you. That's why people in the Bronx, right, they're going to be different than people that's in Harlem. You know what I mean? They're going to be different than people that's in Brooklyn. They're going to be different than people that's in different parts of New York and then in Jersey. Because there's ethnic differences based on the regions, based on the language, based on the values, based on that history in connection to that context and experience. So I think that there's a uniqueness in the Black American experience that we have to own, right? And we have to appreciate our uniqueness and our differences first and respect them ourselves. And the reason, of course, we come from movements, right, that push unity. And the complexity of creating unity, right, is becoming harder by the year, harder by the generation, right? This was a time where there wasn't as many immigrants in America, right? This is a time where a lot of the problems that we have today just weren't the problems. So now when we say the word immigrant, right, we're now creating a disconnection for people who's coming over here in the last 5 to 10 years, right? You say that word immigrant, back when Marcus Garvey was talking about, UNIA, he was talking about repatriation, going to Africa and building a bridge, right? Which would have been easier because the complexity of just saying that, hey, you over there on this continent, I'm over here. Let's build something together because we believe that we have some of the same enemies and problems, which is white supremacy. That complexity is a little different now, right? Because the value systems of Africans that come over here, or South Americans that come over here, Mesoamericans, Latinos, brown people, even people that are Black Americans, they have different ideas as well. Some on the far left, some on the far right, some are liberal, some are conservative, some are conscious, God body, Hebrew, Israelite more. So there's all of these differences about what is our America and what we want. And so until we settle on an ideology about what is our vision for America, we're going to be separated not just by, the immigrant ideologies that come over here and what their values are, but the ideologies that exist within Black America who share a same thread timeline on this soil, but are still separated miles by belief systems and visions. I can't hear you.
Sorry, family. I had it on mute. Quick question, Keys. And do you hear echo? You hear echo? Well, let me just ask this. Keys,
No, sir, I don't.
If Obama is Black American, does he become president when he became president, my brother? How much does America
he had
view?
2 black parents?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think he would have been safe enough. And it comes back to that safe, right?
It goes back to that.
You it's very interesting though, because it speaks to strategicness, and it speaks to bloodline. You know, Obama is also still a part of the bloodline of the presidents, right? So I think that, you know, I had Robert F. Kennedy and I asked him, I say, how can you really relate to the average man when you are part of the bloodline trust of America, right? You're still a part of the oligarchy, this system, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, he gave his you know, statement after that. But what the important part of when we think about bloodlines is a different science that is happening and has always happened throughout the world, right? Men would, and women and families rather, would intentfully develop bloodlines to rule over time, right? And so those bloodlines will be embedded with certain knowledge and certain magic, right, and information, and they will have certain resources and assets that back them. So if you were to create a child for a specific person, purpose, and reason, right, because we don't get that intentful in the science of mating and controlling time, but if you did, then you would send a child, right, that could look necessary for the part that they need to play. The CIA, they hire a lot of people that look ambiguous in this day because of the changing demographic globally, right? And how those lines have blurred. So they're going to want somebody that can fit many different roles so they'll be accepted, right, in different spaces. Obama happened to have the perfect safe profile to be accepted by Black and white people. And because of colorism that existed in Black America, we not only was it been safe for white people, it was safe for Black people. And that's something we don't talk about.
Ooh, Keys
People.
dropping it tonight, y'all. Oh, shit. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
So
shit.
we're not ready for the dark-skinned savior yet. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that we have to think about in our own mind.
Shit.
Because if we think about who's the perfect candidate to get change, strategic change, right? Then we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna make them a little fair skinned so we don't have the issues, because we haven't got out of that paradigm, right, of colorism. So we think about, does the ends justify the means, right? And you know, Malcolm X said by any means necessary. So we picked the right person for the job.
Family, Keith said we not ready for a dark-skinned savior. God damn. Family, if y'all not enjoying, put up a 1 if you enjoying this interview. I mean, this is wow. I'm loving this conversation right here tonight. Keys, I want to ask you this. We just talked about that report. We're talking about people being we're talking about conformity. We're talking about people following orders. We're talking about this is an election year. I want to ask you this, Keys. One of the big tactics both parties use during an election year is shaming. And I got a comparison that I want to use. So this is 2024, Keys. Let me tell you something, brother. What you represent, disciplined Black brother. A lot of times, if a woman feel like you shaming her, let's say a woman's out there hoeing, and a conscious brother's ashamed, and they feel like they're being shamed by a conscious brother, that woman might hoe some more. There'll be a bigger whore. They're like, man, you trying to shame me? I'm gonna be the best whore I could be. You try to shame a gay dude. A gay dude may say, hey, this is who I am. I'm gonna be the best gay dude I'm gonna be. If you shame a Black man with voting, not voting, they're not gonna say, I'm gonna be the best non-voter I could be. They will feel shamed that the voting Democrat, they will go in that booth and they will vote Democrat or Republican. Why the hoes, why the gay dudes or gay women, why they don't feel ashamed as the Black people who are out there voting? They seem to have gotten over the whole shaming propaganda, but the educated Black man and woman has not gotten over the shaming propaganda, and they fall for this shit every time your ancestors voted. Why you ain't vote? Why we ain't get over the shaming propaganda, but other groups have? 19 Keys.
We have not taken the science And what we do is when we see blueprints
Yes.
that they use very effectively against us, we don't take it and turn on them. See, the gays learn, right, how to create campaigns. They said, wait a minute now, we're going to create a campaign you can't fight against. Love is love.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Easy campaign. They're going to say, wait a minute, you trying to shame us? Our campaign is going to be pride. We're done with you now. How you going to fight against that?
Yes.
Right? They took things, ideas, instead of talking about your ideas, they projected theirs into the hearts of the people. And then they organized around those ideas and they focused on projecting those ones. Shame is a very interesting thing because shame is not meant to be felt for a long time. Shame is a signal that lets you know you need to turn around. Right? Shame makes you feel like you're not a good person. And when one exists in shame too long, they start to rot. Right? They spiritually rot. And they feel bad about themselves and they think that they're a bad person. Right? And I see people who live in shame and they want to feel that shame because they think that they're supposed to, not knowing that you're not supposed to be stuck in shame. So shaming as a tactic is very toxic, psychologically toxic to the spirit and the mind. It's okay to feel guilt. Guilt is something that lets me know I did something wrong, right? I crossed the moral line of my own conscious integrity, and now I need to make up for this. So shame is at the bottom and you start moving upward and upward and upward and upward. So when we're using shaming as a tactic, especially with people who are already in a mental deficit, right? You're decreasing the testosterone of a generation to not stand up or feel that they are good people whatsoever. And they don't want you to feel like a good person because they're hoping the way that they can make you feel better is by doing what they say, right? And so what we have to do is that there has to be a revolution, right? And I look at Martin Luther King and I say, Martin Luther King had a lot of right ideas, just at the wrong time, right? And sometimes they were pushed towards the wrong people. He talked about, peace. And one thing that he talked about, a peaceful movement, right? Radical love to his enemy, essentially. And we haven't had a radical love to each other movement, right? We look at somebody like my brother Golden Child. He has a unity movement out there in Chicago. The FOI brothers is constantly going through the streets, showing love to the brothers, speaking to the brothers, being non-judgmental, right? Not trying to make the brothers feel shame about themselves because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had once said to address to the Christian preachers, he said, you preaching to our people and you're making them feel shame about themselves. You're telling them that they bad people. You're telling them that they demons, but you're not giving them a way to turn it around. And you're not telling them that they're capable of something. So when you're using shame as a tactic, you're leaving people in a state of fright or flight, right? You're leaving people stuck, but you're not telling them about their capabilities. So it's like saying, I see somebody do something wrong, like, brother, that was sick what you was doing. What the hell wrong with you? I don't want to just leave them in that state. I say, wait a minute, don't you know you a God? Don't you know who you are? Don't you know this is the science of how to get out your situation? And don't you know you fully capable of that? And that there's a higher self to you that can, rise above this situation into the thinking of a God? That is turning someone's situation around, right? But every 4 years, they need the black man to feel shame. And I'm about to break something down to you.
Go ahead, brother.
This report by Dr. Paul Zak in 2011 that was done at the university. I believe it's Santa Clara University. I could be right or wrong about that. But he did a study on, he took 136 male participants and he asked them about their affiliations, right, to Democratic and Republican parties, right? Now, he checked to see these were self-identified Democrats or Republicans, and they tested whether they were strongly identified Democrats, strongly identified Republicans, or weak affiliated Democrats, or weak affiliated Democratic or Republicans. Now, the interesting part is the test that they ran is that they tested their testosterone, right? And to get a baseline of where their testosterone was, their hormonal levels, right? And week after week, they would do a double-blind study test where they would give some of the participants placebo and they would give some of them testosterone shots. And what they did towards the end of the study is they would then ask them questions as their testosterone increased about whether they still have that same level of affiliation towards their political party and or candidate, and how they felt. What they found was there was 11% decrease for those who were weakly affiliated Democrats, right? And then there was a 47% increase on people having what they call a red shift. So they shifted towards ideology towards Republicans. Now, in the same study, it showed that people who had strong affiliations, right, towards Democrats or Republicans, it had no change on them. So most of the time, people have weak affiliations towards both parties throughout the years. It's only in the political season where most people even think about it, right? And so if we also double that with the study that over 50 years, the last 50 years, testosterone has decreased in this country, right? And there's been a consistent agenda through